The bowl slipped from Mia's hand like she meant it to happen. Hot chicken soup splashed across my white button-down shirt and pooled on the kitchen floor around my feet. I waited for an apology that never came. Instead, my 20-year-old granddaughter tossed a dirty rag at my chest and smirked. "Clean it up, Grandpa. You're closer to the floor anyway." The words hit harder than the scalding soup. I bent down slowly, my 74-year-old knees protesting, and started wiping. As I scrubbed the tiles, something cold and hard settled in my chest. This girl I'd once carried on my shoulders, who used to beg me for bedtime stories, had just treated me like hired help. I finished cleaning in silence, but inside, a plan was already forming. She thought I was weak, broken, ready to be pushed around. She was about to learn how wrong she was. That night, I sat in my study staring at a photo from 10 years ago. Little Mia, grinning gap-toothed, her arms wrapped around my neck at her birthday party. Back then, she called me her best friend. Now she could barely look at me without rolling her eyes. When had everything changed? When her mother, my daughter Carla, started working longer hours and dumping Mia here for weeks at a time. When Mia's father walked out, leaving behind a bitter young woman who seemed to blame the whole world for her problems, including me. I'd given her everything. A roof over her head when her parents' marriage fell apart. Money for college that she dropped out of after one semester. Love that she now threw back in my face like garbage. But tonight, something had shifted. The old Michael who took abuse with a smile was gone. The man planning her comeuppance was just getting started. The next morning, I made breakfast like always. Scrambled eggs, toast, fresh coffee. Mia stumbled downstairs in yesterday's clothes, hair tangled, phone already glued to her hand. She took one bite and pushed the plate away. "This tastes like cardboard, Grandpa. Don't you know how to cook anything decent?" I watched her scroll through social media, ignoring the meal I'd prepared with care. Crumbs fell onto my clean tablecloth as she laughed at videos. When she finished, she left her dishes on the table and headed for the door. "I'm going out. Don't wait up." No thank you. No acknowledgement that I'd fed her again. I cleared her mess in silence, but my mind was racing. Every insult, every moment of disrespect, I was cataloging it all. Soon, she'd understand that kindness wasn't weakness. And when that day came, I wanted to remember every reason why she deserved what was coming. My daughter Carla called that afternoon. "Dad, Mia mentioned you've been acting strange lately. She says you're getting moody and difficult." The accusation stung. After raising Carla through her teenage rebellion, her messy divorce, her financial struggles, now I was the problem? "I've been trying to set some boundaries," I said carefully. Carla sighed. "Look, I know having her there is an adjustment, but she's going through a rough patch. Just try to be patient with her, okay? She's still finding herself. Finding herself by treating me like garbage, apparently." I bit back the words I really wanted to say. Instead, I agreed to try harder, to be more understanding. But as I hung up, I realized something important. Mia wasn't just disrespecting me. She was manipulating her mother against me too. The sweet granddaughter act she put on during phone calls was just another mask. Time to show everyone what was really underneath. That evening, I started a journal. Every slight, every cruel word, every moment of disrespect, I wrote it all down. The soup incident, the breakfast criticism, the way she left messes for me to clean, how she talked on the phone about me like I wasn't there. "Grandpa's losing it," she'd whispered to a friend. "I swear he's going senile." The lies came so easily to her. But lies had a way of catching up to people, and I was going to make sure hers did. I dated each entry carefully, noting times and witnesses when possible. Mrs. Patterson next door had seen Mia screaming at me on the porch last week. The grocery store clerk had watched her snatch money from my wallet without asking. Evidence was power, and I was building a case that would destroy the victim's story she'd been selling to everyone. The pen felt heavy in my hand, weighted with purpose. Friday night, I heard voices downstairs. Mia had invited her friends over without asking. They sprawled across my furniture like they owned the place. Feet on Ruth's coffee table, energy drink cans sweating rings onto her antique coasters. Music thumped through the walls, rattling picture frames. When I came downstairs with my laundry basket, they barely glanced up. "Could you keep it down a little?" I asked politely. Mia looked at her friends and rolled her eyes dramatically. "Sorry guys, Grandpa's having one of his cranky, old man moments." Her friends giggled. One of them, a pale boy with purple hair, actually smirked at me. The disrespect was breathtaking. I nodded and went back upstairs, but I was memorizing faces. These kids would be witnesses to what came next. And when Mia's world came crashing down, I wanted them to see exactly how she'd earned it. Saturday morning, I made some calls. First, to my bank. I'd like to stop the monthly transfer to my granddaughter's account. I told the customer service representative. Click. Done. $500 a month that Mia used for shopping sprees and restaurant meals with friends. Money I'd been sending out of love, now cut off due to disrespect. Next, I called the credit card company. I need to cancel the supplementary card for Mia Richardson. Another click. Another lifeline severed. I left her a grocery store gift card worth $50. Enough for basics, not enough for luxury. Then I sat back and waited. Within hours, my phone was buzzing with angry texts. What did you do to my cards? This is so unfair. I hate you. I smiled and deleted them without responding. Let her panic. Let her realize that her comfortable life depended entirely on my generosity. A generosity she'd taken for granted for far too long. The financial pressure worked faster than I'd expected. By Tuesday, Mia was digging through couch cushions looking for loose change. She couldn't afford her usual coffee shop visit or lunch with friends. When she demanded to know why her allowance had stopped, I looked her straight in the eye. Money is tight, I lied smoothly. We all need to make sacrifices. Her face turned red with fury. You're lying. I know you have money. Then get a job, I suggested mildly. The suggestion horrified her. Work? Like a regular person? The concept was foreign to someone who'd been living off my generosity for months. That night, I heard her crying on the phone to her mother. He's being mean to me. He cut off my money for no reason. But Carla was dealing with her own financial struggles and couldn't help. Mia was truly on her own for the first time in her life. And she was drowning. Mrs. Patterson cornered me while I was checking the mail. Michael, everything all right over there? I've been hearing a lot of shouting. My neighbor had keen eyes and sharp ears. She'd witnessed Mia's tantrums, her disrespectful outbursts on the porch. Just some family tension, I said diplomatically. She frowned. That girl's got no business treating you that way. You're too kind for your own good. Her words planted a seed. Mrs. Patterson wasn't the only neighbor who'd noticed Mia's behavior. The whole street had front row seats to her entitled attitude. When the time came for my final move, I'd have plenty of witnesses to back up my story. People who'd seen firsthand how she treated the grandfather who'd taken her in. Their testimony would be devastating to whatever victim narrative she tried to spin. I thanked Mrs. Patterson and made a mental note to document her observations too. That weekend, I installed a new lock on my study door. Mia tried the handle Sunday morning and found it wouldn't turn. Why is your office locked? She demanded. Privacy, I said simply. But I need to use your computer. For what? Just stuff. You never locked it before. Her entitlement was showing. She'd gotten used to having access to every part of my house, including my personal space. Not anymore. Inside that locked room, I was building a case against her. Photos of messes she'd left. Recordings of her cruel comments. Financial records showing exactly how much money I'd poured into her ungrateful life. She pounded on the door for 10 minutes before giving up. Later, I heard her on the phone complaining about my weird new behavior. She had no idea that her own behavior was about to become public knowledge. The locked door was just the beginning. I bought a small security camera online, disguised as an air freshener. The kind that plugged into wall outlets and looked completely innocent. I placed it in the living room where Mia spent most of her time, angled to catch the worst of her behavior. The first recording was gold. Pick up those magazines, Grandpa. She ordered from the couch, pointing at the mess she'd made. You're not doing anything important anyway. Her tone was pure contempt. When I didn't move fast enough, she added, God, you're so slow. No wonder Mom thinks you're losing it. The camera captured every word, every sneer, every moment of casual cruelty. I saved the files to a secure folder, building a library of evidence that would speak louder than any argument. Technology was on my side. Soon, the whole world would see what kind of person my sweet granddaughter really was. During dinner Tuesday night, Mia knocked her fork off the table. It clattered to the floor near my feet. She looked at me expectantly. Well, are you going to get that or what? The demand was so casual, so automatic, that I almost obeyed out of habit. Almost. Instead, I looked at her calmly. You dropped it. You pick it up. Her mouth fell open. For a moment, She actually looked shocked that I'd said no. But you're closer, she protested. And you have working legs. I replied, cutting another bite of my pork chop. The silence that followed was electric. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Finally, with an enormous sigh and dramatic eye roll, she bent down to retrieve her fork. It was a tiny victory, but it felt enormous. The balance of power was shifting, one small rebellion at a time. And Mia was starting to notice. The next morning, I visited my lawyer. Harold Winters had handled my affairs for 20 years, since Ruth and I first made our wills. I want to make some changes, I told him, sliding a folder across his desk. Major changes. Harold read through my new instructions with raised eyebrows. You're sure about this? Removing Mia from the inheritance entirely. Completely sure, I said. The house goes to charity. The savings accounts get split between organizations that actually do good in the world. Harold leaned back in his chair. This is a significant decision, Michael. Have you considered the family implications? I had. That was exactly the point. Mia thought she was entitled to my money, my house, my life. She'd built her future around inheriting everything I'd worked for. Time to show her that respect couldn't be inherited. It had to be earned. And she'd failed that test spectacularly. Back home, I played a new role. The confused, helpless old man that Mia obviously saw me as. I let my hand shake a little when I poured coffee. I pretended to forget where I put my reading glasses. I moved slower, spoke softer, acted friendlier than my 74 years actually felt. Mia ate it up. See, she told her friend on the phone, right in front of me. He's definitely going downhill. Mom's gonna have to put him in a home soon. The words should have hurt. Instead, they filled me with cold satisfaction. Let her think I was weak and confused. Let her believe she was winning. Overconfidence would make her careless, and careless people made mistakes. The kind of mistakes that ended up recorded, documented, and used as evidence. I was setting a trap, and she was walking right into it with a smile on her face. Thanksgiving arrived with gray skies and bitter wind. Carla came for dinner with her new boyfriend, a nervous man named Frank who kept checking his phone. I'd spent days preparing Ruth's traditional menu. Turkey with sage stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, pumpkin pie. Everything perfect, everything done with love. Mia complained through the entire meal. The turkey's dry. The stuffing's too salty. Why didn't you make anything good? Her ingratitude was so complete, so shameless, that even Frank looked uncomfortable. When I accidentally spilled a little gravy on the tablecloth, Mia pounced. God, Grandpa, can't you do anything right? You're making a mess. The silence that followed was deafening. Carla's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Frank actually winced. My hidden camera captured every word, every sneer, every moment of cruelty. Later, when the truth came out, this recording would be the smoking gun. Thanksgiving dinner, ruined by an ungrateful granddaughter who couldn't even pretend to be thankful. The day after Thanksgiving, Mia invited friends over 4 leftover turkey sandwiches. I watched from the kitchen as she played hostess in my house, serving my food to her friends like she'd prepared it herself. When I dropped a glass while cleaning up, the crash echoed through the dining room. Mia's voice followed immediately. Jesus, Grandpa, watch what you're doing. You're embarrassing me. Her friends went quiet. Really quiet. I saw them exchange glances, uncomfortable with witnessing an old man being berated for a simple accident. One girl actually looked ashamed. Good. They should be ashamed. They were watching a young woman destroy her relationship with the man who'd given her everything. I cleaned up the glass in silence, but inside I was smiling. Those kids would remember this moment. When Mia's reputation crumbled, they'd remember exactly how she'd earned it. I canceled the internet service that Monday. No warning, no explanation. When Mia's phone stopped connecting to Wi-Fi, she went ballistic. What happened to the internet? She screamed, running through the house like her hair was on fire. How am I supposed to live without Wi-Fi? Read a book? I suggested from my chair, not looking up from my newspaper. She stood there sputtering, face red with rage, unable to comprehend a world without constant digital connection. You can't just cancel things without telling me. I can cancel whatever I want, I replied calmly. It's my house. The concept of my ownership seemed foreign to her. She'd been acting like she owned the place for so long that she'd forgotten whose name was on the deed. That night, she pounded on her bedroom floor in frustration. Mrs. Patterson probably heard it 3 houses down. More evidence of her unhinged behavior. By December, the pressure was showing. Mia's friends stopped coming over without internet. Her social media addiction went into withdrawal. She couldn't afford to go out anymore. The girl who'd been treating me like a servant was learning what life was like without a benefactor. One evening, she cornered me in the kitchen. "I know what you're doing," she hissed. "You think you're so smart, making my life miserable. But I'm not going anywhere. This is my home too." The entitlement was breathtaking. My home was her home. My money was her money. My patience was her right. I looked at her steadily. "Actually, Mia, nothing here belongs to you. Nothing at all." Something in my voice must have warned her. For the first time in months, she looked uncertain. "What do you mean?" "You'll find out soon enough." Her face went pale. "Good. Let her worry. Let her wonder." The trap was almost ready to spring. Harold called on a Tuesday. "Everything's ready, Michael. The new will is legally binding as of today." I hung up and felt a weight lift from my shoulders. My house, my savings, my life's work. None of it would go to someone who'd treated me like garbage. Instead, it would help people who actually needed it. The children's hospital where Ruth had volunteered. The food bank that fed families in crisis. Organizations that understood gratitude because they understood suffering. I left copies of the new will on the kitchen counter, right where Mia would see them during her usual morning hunt for coffee money. Within an hour, I heard her screaming upstairs. She'd read every word. The shocked silence that followed told me she finally understood. Her entire future had just evaporated, and there was nothing she could do about it. Carla arrived that evening with Frank in tow. "Dad, what is this about changing your will?" Mia's hysterical. I had prepared for this moment for weeks. "Sit down," I said calmly. "Both of you. There's something you need to see." I connected my laptop to the TV and opened the folder of recordings. Mia's voice filled the room, dripping with contempt as she ordered me around like hired help. The soup incident played in high definition. Her Thanksgiving tantrum. Months of documented abuse from the granddaughter everyone thought was so sweet. Carla's face went white. Frank looked sick. When the last video ended, the silence was deafening. "My God," Carla whispered. "Mia, how could you?" But Mia wasn't there to answer. She'd run upstairs when the recording started, unable to face the evidence of her own cruelty. The truth had a way of doing that to people. The confrontation came Sunday morning. Carla had spent the weekend reviewing everything. The videos, the financial records, the witness statements I collected. When she faced her daughter, her voice shook with disappointment. "You disrespected your grandfather after everything he's done for you? After he took you in when your father left?" Mia tried to deflect, to blame, to make excuses. But the evidence was overwhelming. Even Frank, who barely knew our family, looked at her with disgust. "He was mean to me first," she protested. "He cut off my money. Money he didn't owe you." Carla shot back. "Money he gave out of love that you threw back in his face." For the first time in months, someone was holding Mia accountable. The victim narrative she'd crafted was crumbling, and I was there to watch every moment of her downfall. That afternoon, I called a family meeting. Carla, Frank, and a very reluctant Mia gathered in my living room. Mrs. Patterson had agreed to be a witness. Her statement about Mia's public disrespect was damning. "I want everyone to understand," I began, my voice steady and clear, "why I've made the decisions I've made." I explained the will change, the inheritance going to charity, the complete removal of Mia from my financial life. "This isn't about punishment," I said, looking directly at my granddaughter. "This is about consequences. Actions have consequences, and yours have been unacceptable for months." Mia's friends had started arriving for some planned gathering, but they walked into a courtroom instead. Perfect timing. They got to watch their friend's world collapse in real time. The looks on their faces said everything about what they thought of her behavior. Mia's breakdown was spectacular. "You're ruining my life," she screamed, loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. "I hate you. I hate all of you." She threw a picture frame, Ruth's last Christmas photo, and it shattered against the wall. Her friends pulled out their phones, recording her meltdown for social media. The same girl who'd humiliated me in private was now humiliating herself in public. "You can't do this to me," she sobbed. "I'm family. Family respects each other," I said quietly. "Family shows gratitude. Family doesn't treat people like servants." She lunged toward me, but Frank stepped between us. The rage in her eyes was frightening, but it was also revealing. This was who she really was underneath the sweet granddaughter act. And now everyone could see it. The videos of her tantrum would be online within minutes. Her reputation was finished. Mia left that night, taking only what fit in her car. No goodbye, no apology, no acknowledgement of what she'd done. Just rage and entitlement right to the end. The house fell quiet for the first time in months. I walked through the rooms, breathing freely, feeling the peace that came with justice served. Mrs. Patterson knocked on my door the next morning. "You did the right thing, Michael," she said firmly. "That girl needed to learn some hard lessons." Other neighbors stopped by throughout the week. They'd all witnessed pieces of Mia's behavior, and they all supported my decision. The community had my back because they'd seen the truth. Sometimes the hardest thing about doing what's right is that it looks cruel to people who don't know the whole story. But I had documentation, witnesses, and a clear conscience. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived. Mia's handwriting, shaky and uncertain. "I've been thinking about what happened. I still think you're wrong, but I guess I understand why you did it. I'm staying with a friend and looking for work. Maybe someday we can talk." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in Ruth's old Bible, next to our wedding photo. It wasn't an apology, but it was acknowledgement. Growth, maybe. Or just the reality of consequences finally sinking in. I looked around my quiet house, at the peace I'd fought so hard to reclaim. Sometimes love meant saying no. Sometimes kindness required cruelty. Sometimes the greatest gift you could give someone was letting them face the results of their choices. Mia had learned that respect couldn't be inherited or demanded. It had to be earned. And maybe, someday, she'd be ready to earn it back. But that was her choice to make, not mine.